Yeah, well, initially when my first year of school, I was abused by other students, so that was like the main kick-off.
What, physically, verbally?
Yeah, physically, yeah. You need help there and then, so I was getting quite frustrated with that. But from my perspective, like, I was showing all these symptoms, but people still didn't know what to do next. Like, what's the next step, rather than just go back to your GP? Because I couldn't even tell you how many times I've been to my GP for my mental health.
I didn't realise you were helping that many people, mate. You must be incredibly proud.
No, not really.
Why?
This episode of All Things Business, the podcast, is brought to you by our digital media partner, DFA Law. DFA Law, providers of expert and dedicated legal advice to businesses and families since 1838. DFA Law, the law firm for life.
John.
Ben.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
No, Mental Health Awareness Week is on the horizon.
It is.
We've got lots of mutual friends and business associates in common. And
Yep.
I saw you at the MKBAAs.
Yes. We always see each other in passing.
I know. And I was like, I need you on the podcast. And he's like, all right, Ben, ring me. So
There's probably more slurred than that at the awards.
because it's a bit later on. But
Yeah, it was, yeah.
for those listening, watching that don't know you, just introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Yeah, I'm John. So I 6 years ago set up an organisation called Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support. From my perspective personally, I grew up with some issues when I was sort of 5-6 years old. I was in a children's mental health institute hospital.
Where was that?
In Aylesbury. It was a place called the Sue Nichols Centre. So there's an adult hospital called the Tyndall Centre. It's not there anymore. I think it's flats. Like, everything's getting knocked down and everything's turning into flats. So Tyndall did that, but then down the road there was one for more like children, young people. So I was there, following a series of things that happened in my first year of school, and my life kind of, I don't really remember a lot of that. It was like a long time ago. But you probably know when you go to the NHS, there's a giraffe that measures your height. Have you ever seen one of those?
Yeah.
You've got like beige rooms. There was just tissues on a table in the middle. So that's all I really remember. And it wasn't a great introduction to the world of mental health. So I didn't decide to open up. I didn't really feel comfortable to. So I didn't. And then I didn't talk about my mental health for another sort of 10 years or until I was about 16.
How old are you now?
I'm 33 now. Yeah. So I didn't talk about it, didn't open up, didn't think that it was a thing to really talk about, and I didn't really know any different at that time. But when I was 16, things got a bit much and I had an attempt in my life. Same again when I was 18, and it was kind of recurring. So the last time I tried was when I was 24. So there's been 3 main events. And the first 20 years or so of my life, or 25 years, was like trying to figure out what's going on, what's not quite right against everyone else that I'm seeing.
If I'm and if there's anything, obviously
Go
don't,
for it.
don't
Yeah,
ask.
yeah, no, open book.
Yeah, if I'd ask something, please just say no, Ben, piss off.
Okay.
What?
No, Ben, piss off.
What? Were they like linked, or was there something that happened, a relationship breakdown, or anything like that made you go to that place?
Yeah, well, initially when my first year of school, I was abused by other students, so that was like the main kick-off.
What, physically, verbally?
Yeah, physically, yeah. So it led to me needing, I think it was 2 or 3 operations, and it was quite severe. So then I didn't really know anything about this since I started Arthur Ellis, because my memory had gone. By the time I was 16, I didn't have any childhood memories, because it was kind of like something called blocking. You like block out anything that's relatively traumatic sometimes. So I don't have any memories of my childhood, which is kind of nice because I can kind of relive it now, and I'm a bit of a kid when it comes to certain things. So, fairgrounds, whatever, I'll be like in my element because I get to relive it when I'm aware and an adult.
Yeah.
And so it was just a recurring thing. And since then, there wasn't anything, I wouldn't say there was anything pivotal, if that's what you mean, like life event kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like 16, 18, there was the general normal stuff. Like exams, school, relationships, whatever. But nothing out of the ordinary to cause all of this like extreme response. So when I was 22 or so, I went to the doctors and was like, this is still happening. Can I actually see somebody and maybe talk to someone about it? And I was in a waiting list for about 4 years. So I was ready. Like I was
Ready to
when you
open
don't
up.
go to the doctors with an illness or like anticipating you're going to get sick in 6 months. Can you start the ball rolling now because I'm going to get an infection in 9 months' time?
Yeah.
You need help there and then. So I was getting quite frustrated with that, and I was fortunate enough to go to the Priory. If you've come across that, what would you kind of associate the Priory to if you've heard of it?
Drug and alcohol,
Yeah. Who goes?
celebrities,
Yeah, do you know why?
ex-footballers. Go on.
Because it's £400 an hour.
Really?
It's mental. Like it's so expensive, but I saved up.
Some of them they stay there though they go there and stay there for weeks on end.
Yeah, it's a fortune. So I saved up for one appointment, and I was very honest with the receptionist at the time, Piers. I've got one appointment, and that's all I've got. So I just need to know what's going on. So in that appointment, I was diagnosed with something called bipolar disorder. So it's like a difficulty managing your moods and all of that sort of stuff. There's a big misconception with bipolar because some people are described sort of flippantly, they're being bipolar if they're like mood swings or they're unpredictable. But with my bipolar in particular, I can be in a mood for, I can be really depressed for like 18 months, and then I'll be high for like 2 months, and then I'll be low again. So it's long-winded.
How do you manage? How is it? Are you on medication to try and
all the
measure that?
meds? Absolutely. So meds help. I do take some. But they change. Like I was originally just prescribed 1,500 milligrams, which of something called Depakote.
Yeah.
So 1,500 milligrams is a lot. I slurred my words like throughout the day, like drowsy, not really with it. And this is like the first couple of years of Arthur Ellis. So I needed to be, running a business, you need to be on it.
Yeah.
So I went to a client meeting once, and I was slurring my words, and I did not win the business. And it's just really difficult to manage. But then I moved over to a different medication. Now I'm on a different medication. So it kind of, I see relationships with medications almost evolving as you do.
And just on that, and this isn't a dig at the NHS at all, because I think we've all single-handedly appreciate how amazing the NHS is, but it's quite clear that it's also broken.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it's not the people that we see on a day-to-day basis, because they're the heartbeat of the NHS. But that relationship with medication, how often is that monitored? And it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
My father, and I haven't shared this before. Well, for people that have known me or listened or watched recent episodes, I've had my own challenge with mental health.
Yeah.
So has my father. And my father was the one that was against me sort of mentioning it before, because he's like, "Oh, you be careful, son. People." And this is like 6-7 years ago. And I went, "Dad, I don't give a shit if someone wants to look down their nose at me or stop doing business with me because I'm being honest about mental health." And then he then realised and taught me through how some of our family members and friends of the family left my mum and dad very high and dry in 1990 when he had a breakdown, and he spent 6 months in St Andrews.
Oh right, yeah.
So I was 83, so I was 7. My brother's 86; he would have been 4. But as a result of that, Dad had a lithium deficiency.
Okay.
So until about, I think he had another, I don't know what episode, I think they refer to it as.
Yeah, generally,
in 96 or 98, and he's been fairly like sound. You wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But then during COVID, where he couldn't get his 3 monthly checkups on his blood tests, he didn't have a blood test for 18 months, and then he had another episode.
Yeah.
So the reason I say that is because your body changes, medicine evolves.
Yeah.
How do you find that process?
It's all right. It's so, to answer one of your questions was sort of how regularly does it evolve, whatever. So I've been diagnosed 6 years, 7 years, and I've had one review after the main like setup of it all. So it's not often, and generally it's led by the patient. So I'd have to go to my doctors and say there's something off, which is difficult because with mental health, often that insight into knowing that there's something off isn't there.
Yeah.
You're in your own little world sometimes. So it does take other people to highlight it to you and say, you know,
these are signs.
the last few weeks there's been some weird stuff going on, or you've not been yourself.
Yeah, me and my brother and my mum we're very tight like that in terms of just talk. And it's thankfully, touch wood, it's not often, but those are the conversations that we have to have.
Yeah. But that's amazing because these difficult, challenging things, these awful things that can happen sometimes, can really bring some people together. Like, I know, like, I'm really close with my mum. My sister works for Arthur Ellis, so
tell me about Arthur Ellis. Tell us about Arthur Ellis.
So Arthur Ellis are my granddad's.
Okay.
So Arthur is on my dad's side, Ellis is on my mum's side.
Because I did tell the office, I said John Arthur or John Ellis is coming in today.
Yeah. Well, Arthur's a middle name, so I'm Jonathan Arthur. So,
great name, Arthur.
So yeah, great name, Arthur. Well done, Arthur. Arthur's everywhere, including in this room.
So that's a nice touch.
So when I found out I was bipolar, I was working in a very commercial environment. So I worked as like in contracts management, in business development, but mainly commercial management of railway franchises, which if anyone works in the railway or knows the railway, you'll have a franchise that, Virgin or someone will win for the 15 years. So that bidding process or the tender in order to win that, 15-year program, 1.6 billion worth, they take 5, 6, 7 years, these bids. So I was in commercial management of that, and it was quite high flying. I'd bought a number of properties by the time I was sort of 25. So after this appointment, just to set the scene of where I was in this job, had some assets and stuff, and I was doing really well. But personally, like professionally, I was doing well. Personally, there were maggots growing out of my kitchen. Like, it was a mess.
Really?
I was just not in a good place whatsoever. I was drinking an awful lot at that time as well, just to try and get through.
Like a coping mechanism.
Exactly, yeah. So on my way back from Oxford in this Priory appointment, I looked into, sort of with a commercial hat on, like what sort of training is out there for my own employer at the time, because I was a bit of a mess. And there wasn't anything out there. There was loads of training that talked about what conditions are there. So like anxiety, depression, all the symptoms. But from my perspective, like, I was showing all these symptoms, but people still didn't know what to do next. Like, what's the next step, rather than just go back to your GP? Because I couldn't even tell you how many times I've been to my GP for my mental health.
Do you think GPs are set up for mental health?
They aren't trained in it. Some of them do placements in it, but they're not formally trained in being able to do it. The way that anxiety and depression are diagnosed by a GP is based on adding up numbers from a form and things that you answer.
Almost like scoring, yeah.
Scoring, yeah. So it's not a very formal process.
Particularly when someone's quite vulnerable.
Yeah. But if you look at how NHS funding and stuff is split, primary care, where GPs sit, the first place you go to, A&E and stuff included, they get about 10% of the overall funding that's for mental health, but they deal with 90% of the issues. So since mental health awareness has been raised, everyone's been talking about it more, everyone's encouraged to go to their doctors, but now GPs across the country are doing about 500,000 appointments a day just for mental health, but they aren't really equipped for it. And imagine having 500,000 new clients a day. Your company would just implode, and that's what's happening to the NHS.
So Arthur Ellis was formed.
I got together with 9 different people from different disciplines, so like psychology, psychotherapy, counselling, loads of different areas and disciplines. And I said that, I want to create a new form of training that does the next step after what's currently out there. So what kind of tools and techniques and resources do people need? How can we engage them with that? So we developed a framework. I started delivering it into some clients and some corporates that I knew. And that was able to offer us enough revenue for me to bring in somebody who had a psychology background full time. And they started doing one-to-one appointments off the back of the training that I was doing. So my work was funding them. And that's now sort of on a bigger scale what Arthur Ellis is doing. So we're a not-for-profit and we're a charity. So the not-for-profit works with corporates to do workshops, training, technology.
And that work that you do with the corporates, then, do you go in and train the trainer, so to speak, or do you go in there and deliver the training from start to finish?
From start to finish. So it's not necessarily just training. There was an Oxford study about 6 months ago that came out and said, for any businesses out, I'm sorry if this is like anyone's watching's well-being strategy, but it might not be working. So Oxford University did a study on like 30,000 employees, colleagues, across 200 different businesses, and they were able to figure out that the current training out there, sleep apps, well-being apps, meditation apps, fruit bowls, all of this other stuff that people are doing for well-being in corporates has no effect whatsoever. So they looked at these 30,000 people 1 year, and they went back 3 years later after the company's providing all of this stuff, and it was absolutely doing naff all.
Why though?
Because it's putting the emphasis on the employee having a problem rather than their environment having a problem.
Okay, so by creating a safer environment in the workplace, that should be the nucleus of the well-being policy or strategy.
Absolutely.
Rather than, come on everyone, use this app because it does
It's just
this.
plaster, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's just like, okay,
I get that. So it's I suppose, well, like anything, I suppose it's the strategy of how you implement.
Yeah. Well, so if you need a sleep app, or you're struggling to sleep and you download a sleep app, that will monitor your sleep and it will, give you feedback and all of that sort of stuff. It doesn't sort out the root cause as to why you can't sleep in the first place.
Why aren't you sleeping?
Yeah. Okay. So we do. So we generally everything starts with like an awareness workshop. So we do. It's 2.5 hour workshop with a leadership team, HR team, people team, health and safety team sometimes, and we will have a look at what are the root causes of, or what are people going through that's interrupting their well-being, and well-being falls under 5 areas of behaviour, which we can go through if you want.
Yeah, no, go.
But we call them our bananas and donuts. So it sounds a bit stupid.
I like both.
Yeah, good. So do I. It doesn't have to be these things. Some people say, "Oh, but I don't like bananas." And it's like, I'm not actually telling anyone to just go off and eat bananas. I'd be sponsored, but it's a metaphor for our behaviour. So if you were to have or introduce a bit of fruit to your diet, and change nothing else, but if you were to introduce some fruit to your diet, Ben, for 2 weeks, how would you feel?
I'm going to feel I'm better.
You can feel
more
better.
Positive.
You're going to be more healthy, right? So that's kind of the metaphor of these banana behaviours. So you've got move, which is essentially exercise.
Yeah.
You've got focus, which is anything that's calming and like drawing your attention to the present moment. So generally that's stuff that we call therapeutic. So it could be having a bath, it could be doing gardening, cooking.
Yeah, reading a book.
Ace, thank you. Cleaning, some people find like that as well. It's like something that you're targeting your attention to. Discover, so that's anything that you're learning new that you can accomplish. So that could be DIY, it could be learning how to swim, bike rides, like learning how to cycle. We've then got communicate, so seeing friends, family, and then helping others. So there are 5 natural areas of behaviour that we need as human beings. Nothing else matters. Like your car, your status, your money in your bank, it doesn't matter unless you have these 5 behaviours. That stuff can enable these 5 behaviours. Yeah. But generally speaking, if you whack a fruit bowl in your office, it's gonna do fuck all, really. People might pick up a bit of fruit if they fancy it, but it won't have a fundamental improvement to their well-being. So these 5 areas of behaviour is your bananas. Now, let's say, what do you do for your exercise generally?
I gym every morning.
Every morning, nice. Okay.
Unless I've had a few scoops the night before.
I was going to say, yeah.
But
they vary.
Four days a week I'm in the gym.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong to have a bit of a break or whatever. But if you have a break for a longer period of time, when we exercise or when we move, and this is just one of the 5 areas that we go through in this awareness thing, when we exercise, there's a place in our brain called the hippocampus. That physically grows when we exercise. Not to the degree where your head's going to explode in the morning when you go to the gym or anything like that, but you will noticeably feel better. And I'm sure you do after you've exercised.
Them endorphins, there's a lot to be said for endorphins.
Absolutely. So when you exercise, this area of your brain grows, and that area of your brain is responsible for learning new things. It's responsible for your memory. It's also responsible for keeping your emotions regulated. So if you go through a period where your exercise is broken and you're not exercising, have you had a period like that where you've had a break?
Yeah, and you end up eating crap.
Yeah.
Feeling rubbish. Your sleep is definitely affected.
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, I know I'm in no great physical shape, but I even notice sometimes your gut feels more bloated.
Yeah. And there's a big
and then it's
connection
those
between
behaviours.
the gut.
Yeah, those behaviours. Then you go, I'm going to go tomorrow. And you wake up, but you sleep through your alarm.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're on it and you bounce out of bed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a good test for me is the colour of my urine.
Really?
Yeah, because if there are times in my life.
I was about to say, show me.
Yeah.
You've got me so
well,
intrigued.
here's one I prepared
really
earlier.
Intrigued. Like it's going to be bright purple or something, like Barney.
No, but like a few years ago, it would be like Lucozade.
Really? Okay.
And that's bad.
Yeah.
Whereas now, it would probably look like very diluted orange juice or lemon juice.
Yeah.
You know, because
I'm really proud of you for your piss. It's good. It's good strides. It's really good strides.
But it sounds weird. But that's my. If it's too dark and it's too like Lucozade, then that's me.
It's one of your signs.
That's me telling myself I need to go and have 5 pints of water before I'm going to bed tonight, and that naturally makes me feel better.
Absolutely, but that's the thing. Like you've picked up on something really good there. Like if you have these things in place, everything else kind of falls in place. So like financial well-being, for example, if you go into the gym, you're less likely to get a takeaway.
Yeah.
You're going to be more in the swing of like cooking,
Definitely.
eating healthily and all of that stuff. So how much would you spend on a takeaway in comparison to a week shop?
Depends what I'm having.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it does.
But no, I mean, listen, you don't get. Well, I've got a family of 5, so if we have a takeaway, you're not getting change out of 50 quid, are you?
No. It's probably similar to what you would spend on a week shop in one meal.
Yeah.
So it's like those sorts of
I wish
decisions.
my weekly shops were 50 quid, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I wish a takeaway was 50 quid. I don't think a family of 5 takeaway is going to be 50 quid.
But I get that point, and it's that behaviour.
Yeah, and that shift of behaviour. So the moment that we take a banana, like a lunchtime walk or an evening walk or going to the gym in the morning, and we think, right, I'm going to stay in bed or I'm going to sleep through my alarm, or I'm going to scroll on social media until it's too dark and then I'm not going to go for a walk because I'll convince myself by using my behaviour to not do it.
I have like these 2, I don't know what you call them.
Shoulders?
Chimps on the shoulder. And this one here is the one that's in my ear that's that voice.
Yeah.
And then you got this one here that's like, have the extra hobnobs with your cup of tea tonight.
But there'll be times
going, no, have the chopped up banana and the 2 yogurts.
But there'll be times when neither of them are there.
Yeah.
When you're on top of things and you don't need them, they won't be there at all.
But then when I have conversations like that, I think to myself, is anyone else like that, or is that just me?
Yeah, everyone's like that. So you're human, right?
Yeah, but it's having that conversation with people as well.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
My boy the other day, Rocco, he's 5, and he said my inner voice, he's talking about his mate at school, Archie, had hit him, and he said my inner voice wanted to hit him back, but I said, no, I'm going to tell the teacher.
Yeah.
And I was like, his inner voice, where has that come from? Like, how is that even, I don't know if it's mentioned at school, if he's picked it up on something. And I said, and I just sort of like smiled. I spoke to my wife about it. I was like, he's got an inner voice as well.
Yeah.
So what does Arthur Ellis do for businesses then? If I wanted you to, we've got 20, say there's 25 of us here.
Yep.
What's your offering to us as a business?
So we've got 4 stages. So the first one's awareness, where we do a workshop in person with everybody, and we understand, we go through the bananas, these areas of behaviour. We have a look at the root cause as to what gets in the way of those bananas. So if your exercise is being replaced, is it workload? Is it relationships internally? Is it personal life stuff? And they would be the demands. So we call them the demands. Then you have a look at, in comparison, what resources do people have available? So if there's stuff going on in people's personal lives to do with finance, to do with legal things, or whatever might happen in people's personal lives, relationships, is there a route to access some support? If there's not, could be quite a simple fix. If it's to do with workload or like management styles or something like that, then what sort of training do management need? So some of them can be easy fixes, some of them are a bit longer term, but it informs the strategy moving forward. So our awareness workshop has benefits to like make consistent language across the board, gives everybody things that they can do themselves to develop a bit of independence around well-being, because unfortunately, Ben, you can't go to the gym and I get the benefits. It's our own responsibility. Well-being and our mental health is our own responsibility. We can't rely on somebody to fix us when we get bad. We've got to do a certain amount of it ourselves. So that's awareness. We then design a strategy. So that's design is the second phase. Engage is the third phase. So we train the organization by doing like a podcast type service. So we'll go in and do 6 episodes on different areas of mental health that's impacting staff, and then they can share it with their peers. Yeah. So you would be, people would probably watch it because you're involved in the business.
Or you ask them to watch it in work time or...
Yeah, exactly. But it can be anybody. So we've done some work with Costa in the past. We've done work with W40. And we would aim to get somebody from like the sales team, somebody from the accounts team,
finance. Yeah, I get it.
So we can get the different perspectives and show everyone else what's going on for the different departments. So that's the bit we call engage. Get people bought into the changes, get people bought into the methodologies that we want to use, and then finally it's embed, where we have essentially quarterly meetings. We can have monthly meetings with the team, talk about safeguarding people, talk about how do we progress things, and then keep on top of any changes that are going on in the business. So if there's, let's say, a consultation to redundancy, how is that going to impact everybody? What do we need to do as a business? And how do we make sure the colleagues are going to be okay, even though it's going to be a difficult time, but still performing
during that time?
Yeah, during that
and
time.
And how many are there of you in the organisation?
About 30 now.
Really?
Yeah.
And is it geographically? Where are your customers based?
Everywhere, really. Less in Milton Keynes and stuff where we're actually based, to be honest. But we've done training all across the country, from Motherwell in Scotland, down to Yeovil in Somerset, and also we've done some international stuff. So we've done some work in Asia, Europe, so France, Spain, Germany, Poland, and America. So we've done some training in New York and Jersey.
So when you look
an
at
awful accent,
Jersey,
it's more country, isn't it?
Norwich.
yeah. I'm going to stop doing accents forever.
Mental Health Awareness Week.
Yes.
What are you a fan of it? It sounds. I look at Mental Health Awareness Week and I think it's great, but what about the other 51 weeks of the year?
It's sort of a hashtag.
What's your stance on it?
I think it's reflective of us still not taking it that seriously.
Do you still think it's a bit of a taboo subject?
I don't think it's taboo. I think it's a buzzword for mental health in general. I think it's become a bit of a buzzword for people to tick a box, to say that they're doing something good, to reflect well on CSR. But ultimately, from a business perspective, it's really difficult because it's quite a controversial way of looking at it.
I think a lot of it. I think a lot of it is also depending on who you're talking to, and I think that's more of a generational thing because
and how it's done.
I think there is still. I think there's probably, it sounds bad, the last generation, if you like, of the working class don't believe in mental health. Pull your
No.
socks up, lad.
Yeah,
Come on,
yeah.
crack on. And I get it, but those people were probably born in the 50s or 60s, and not all, but I'm just saying, I'm stereotyping here. But life's very different in 2020 or the 2020s, should I say,
massively.
compared to what it was like in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, massively.
I think life was a lot safer. Not that I was obviously around then, but life was definitely safer in the 80s and 90s than what it is now.
Yeah.
You used to be able to go out and let you as kids, you could go out and just play.
Yeah, you
play
could, yeah.
40
Come
beats,
back when the street lights
Kirby,
turn on.
exactly. Make sure you're home before dark. And whereas now, my kids, I'd never let my teenager out, but that's reluctantly. So it's a difficult one, that, but I think it's going to resonate with me about that implementation.
Yeah,
because some of those tools that you've said, I was thinking, what's wrong with that? But actually, it's the culture around it.
it is massively. Like if you think about families now, and you're spot on about the generational changes, and it's no one's fault really, but the way that life has changed, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm going to be gender neutral, because I don't want it to sound like I'm saying women should stay at home or anything like that, but generally,
don't do that. You'll get
back. Well, but back.
You'll get whacked.
Bear with
me.
Bear with me.
Quickly before Arthur cuts that up.
Back when women were meant to stay at home and look after the children and all of that sort of stuff, there would be a parent at home, running the house. As cost of living has increased, inflation's gone up. Now it's really challenging to run a household off of one sole income. Yeah, like much more challenging than it was before.
Even before cost of living, I think women, and I've always struggled with like the gender pay gap, and I don't know if this is obviously me being naive here, but I think it certainly happens in certain industries and geography, certainly in cities. But women have naturally become more independent, and quite rightly so as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think even me growing up, I was probably one of the few families in my friendship groups where both parents worked.
Yep.
Whereas I think you're right, a lot of people in the 90s and early noughties would have probably been maybe just dad going out to work.
Yeah.
But now it's completely changed, and now you've got some where mum is actually the breadwinner.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't really, and this is what I mean about being gender neutral. It doesn't matter who stays at home. It doesn't matter who makes the money, or it really couldn't be less relevant. But what we're now seeing is that both parents are going out to work, and the rise of technology at the same time as both parents going out to work has meant that children are being raised by technology instead, to a great degree. Ultimately, yeah. If you look at when social media was released, the 3 years after social media release, hospital admissions for mental health went up by about 180%. And now looking at the workforce and people coming into the industries and the generations that are now coming through, people who are now 26 years old won't know life without smartphones.
Yeah.
People who are 18, 19, maybe 20 won't know life without social media.
Yeah.
So their entire methods of communicate, remember, is one of our areas of well-being.
Yeah.
So the ways in which people have learned how to communicate, deal with conflict. So instead of being dragged around to your neighbours to apologise face-to-face on their doorstep and that kind of nervous...
Slide into their DMs.
Well, it will block them.
Yeah.
Like if there's a conflict, I just won't pick up my phone. Now it's gone. Or I'll just block them and then I won't talk to them again. So training within organisations, and this is why we don't just come and talk about anxiety and depression, because ultimately you need to be trained or training people in how to actively listen. Because the skills that you learn from Instagram, putting a picture out there and expecting comments back, that isn't a conversation. That's not active listening. You're just putting something out there and expecting people to do stuff about it. So you've got, for that generation who are coming into the workplace, you're not going to need to train them in technology. They'll pick it up because they just know it. They know the fundamentals. But what they are going to need support with is training on active listening, training on conflict management, training on building relationships in general. And that's what we see in our one-to-one service as well. So Arthur Ellis, all the training and work we do with corporates, funds our charity that runs a one-to-one service. So we see every year We're the biggest mental health service in the region. See about 2,500 families a year. We're sent about 100 children a week. And the primary issues that we see are based on relationships. Primary.
Relationship breakdown. What, family breakdowns?
Relationship breakdowns. No, it could be friends. It could be, interpersonal relationships.
How young are the?
We've had kids through that are about 6.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. So our cutoff is like 8 years old. Sometimes we'll see children that are younger, depending on what work needs to be done, how communicative they are, how developed they are, and that sort of thing. So we will generally have an appointment with them to see if we can actually help.
And how far afield are those people and families that you're supporting? Are they from all over the country?
All over the country, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we've actually had some self-referrals. So people can come to our service, just self-refer. We've had some self-referrals from Pakistan when all the floods were going on and that sort of thing. And
so how can you fund that? Like this like that's mind-boggling.
Yeah, because mental health is also cumulative. So like if you go to a GP appointment, you're in there for 10 minutes and you don't really go back. But with a mental health patient or like
you're not just seeing them once, are you?
You see them for 4 months. So when it comes to like workload of staff and all of that sort of stuff, if you get 100 referrals, a caseload is maybe 50 people. So that's 2 members of staff full within 1 week for 4 months. Is
there NHS funding that you can apply for, or doesn't it work like that?
It doesn't really work like that. We are funded, so we work with like academy trusts, so groups of schools, in order to open up our one-to-one service to all of the students. We also work with GP surgeries or like catchment areas of 3 or 4 surgeries where we can utilise NHS funding so that GPs can refer directly into our service. So we've got upwards of 40 contracts with schools or surgeries and other charities, community organisations that pay a subsidised fee for our sessions, but it's only subsidised because of the corporate work we do. It would be really challenging otherwise.
So when you look at the numbers then, you've literally... Arthur Ellis has literally helped tens of thousands of people since it's been formed.
Yeah, we'll do about 30,000 appointments a year, and we went from
30,000 a year. So that on its own is probably helping. What's that? 6,000 individuals, having 5 appointments each. Or is that 30,000 individuals?
No, 30,000 sessions. So you're talking probably about 3,000 people. Yeah, because some people need.
More.
The standard we do is 8 sessions,
but
to
some
really
will need
see
12 or 13, and some
might need more. Some might be all right after 2, after 4, whatever it might be. Yeah. So but the reason why the corporates come first for us really is that without that revenue, without us doing work with corporates or having support from corporates, we won't be able to keep up with that every week. So being sent 100 more kids.
Wow, that's
so we've got to be really innovative with how the whole business functions, with how the whole system functions, in order for us to be there for people.
I didn't realise you were helping that many people, mate. You must be incredibly proud.
No, not really.
Why?
So we talked about how the NHS is and the state of the NHS. So the NHS Children's Mental Health Services are in a position, unfortunately, where they have to. Before COVID, they were rejecting the referrals of about 120,000 children a year. So after COVID, that's gone up. So that now there's about 250,000 children a year who are referred to say you need NHS help, but they get a letter back saying we can't help you. So we are seeing 1% of those who are rejected at the minute. So I want Arthur Ellis to be a national service that runs alongside and supports the NHS, but not physically captures the children. That'd be really weird. I wouldn't get a DBS otherwise. But captures them into a service that is nurturing, that supports them, that doesn't have a threshold, that doesn't have a waiting list for those 250,000.
So why wouldn't you be proud?
Because we haven't done the 250,000 yet.
Okay, all right, I get that, but. You should be incredibly proud, because one other way of looking at it is actually look at the thousands of people that you have helped, and what would have happened to them if Arthur Ellis hadn't been formed.
Oh, we've intervened with lives, for sure,
and for that, thank you, because I'm not aware of anybody, but that doesn't mean to say I don't know people that have benefited or have been helped, but honestly, I can't thank you enough for that, because that's pretty special. And what will it take for you to fast forward 5 years and all right, you've made a dent into that 99% that you can't help at the moment.
Yeah.
What will that take? Is it a case of literally raising enough money to fund it? Is that the biggest objection, or is it because you need to work more closer with the NHS and it's the people at the top that need to take action?
Oh mate, there's loads of obstacles. So one of the obstacles is hiring. So we're 30 people at the minute. In order to support 250,000 kids a year, you're talking about 1 million appointments. We would need to have about 1,600 staff in order to do that. There aren't the skills out there. So we've been working on developing a 5-day training program to upskill anyone to be able to support a child. And I think that's been, obviously, you need a very well put together course for that. If you're putting people in front of children, for their mental health, you need to know that this is going to work. So that's been a lot of the development lately, is getting a course that's right, and we can upskill people to bring them into the organisation. Funding is always going to be a thing, especially on the charity side. A lot of the funding is public, so every 4 years it goes at risk. So that's not very.
How can you forward plan for that? Like on that stuff like that really frustrates me.
It doesn't seem like enough time to really get.
Well, by the time you start making a dent, you probably and then you start worrying about, actually, are we going to be able to win this? Because if not, everything we've just done over the last 2.5 years becomes undone.
Yep. So that's where we have the corporates as well. So corporates are a lot more flexible.
Yeah.
The funding is typically unrestricted. So if we can build an incredible product or incredible series of product and services, and we have corporates that are not just, we're helping, because I run the not-for-profit and the charity very commercially. I don't believe really in going up and asking for sponsorship, for money. I would, don't get me wrong, but I believe that when working with a corporate in particular, there needs to be some back as well.
Yeah.
So we want to develop partnerships with corporates where, okay, maybe we are doing services for your staff, but also wherever every single service we provide a grant into the charity.
Yeah.
So it's cyclical, and it's beneficial for everybody.
Listen, it's been great. I've really enjoyed meeting you and learning more about, or meeting you again and learning more about Arthur Ellis. And
yeah, it's nice to see you sober as well.
Yeah, don't say that. People think I'm a pisshead.
They already know.
But before I let you go, you got dinner party tomorrow night. 4 people, past or present. Who would you have? Anyone you want?
I actually have a dinner party tomorrow night.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, not at my house.
Oh, okay.
But
who would you have?
4 people.
Yeah.
Stephen Fry.
Okay.
Would be up there. I would probably also say Jordan Peterson, if you've come across Jordan Peterson. I think he'd be very interesting. He's a Canadian psychologist. I've spoken at the Cambridge Union before, and I signed a book that Gandhi signed.
Really?
It was so I'd probably have Gandhi just to tell him like we're in the same book. Yeah. And then
what was that like? Speak at the Cambridge Union.
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking. It was very early days, and it was actually set up by somebody who was on a uni placement called Georgia, who was with us, and she was going to uni there. So yeah, it was remarkable. Really, it was amazing, and like all of you're just walking through, and there's like pictures of celebrities on the walls.
How many did you speak in front of?
Between 50 and 100, something like that.
But
it's not
massive. Quite intense and quite I get
very
it,
echoey kind of. Yeah, everything's on you. So I'd do those, and then I would probably have, if I'm totally honest, probably have my mum.
Yeah, good.
Because I'd like my mum to meet everyone else as well. Be like,
love that.
Do you want to come for dinner with Stephen Fry, mum? She'd be all over it.
And where'd you go to restaurant locally?
Go-to restaurant locally. So I'm in Milton Keynes. The last restaurant I went to was Maya, Indian restaurant in the Hub. It was really nice. Yeah, it was good.
Good
yeah.
Stuff.
What about you?
What, my local restaurant? There's too many. You don't get a physique like this being.
Oh,
that's why I have to go to
absolutely.
the gym every morning. But I've Nuovo is a very nice restaurant. But the Snooty Fox over at Lowick, which is where like is it Saltburn on
The film?
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
sort of filmed over
That's
there.
a great film.
I haven't watched it. I was going to watch it, and then I realised what happened, and I was like, "No, I don't want to watch it." But
No.
Snooty Fox at Lowick is superb.
Snooty Fox at Lowick.
Yeah, it's really nice, and it's part of a group that's got the Red Lion at Cranford, and Pig and Waffle at Grafton Underwood.
Oh,
So they're all like they're the other side of the county, and then Ember as well is a real cool place in Wellingborough. It's quite a good, really nice restaurant. It's got a nice bar next door,
Yeah, nice.
so you're always guaranteed a good meal out when you go to any of those.
Yeah, I do.
So we're quite fortunate, really, this end of the town or county, because we've got some really good independent restaurants.
Yeah, I do like exploring new places sometimes, but I think I'm a bit more of like a home bod. I like ordering in and
yeah,
that
I
sort
get
of
that
thing,
as
but-
well. I'm going to. I tell you where I did go the other day. It was lovely. The Green Man at Eversholt.
Oh, I don't know.
Lovely,
Okay.
beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
I went there. That was really nice. And then I'm going to the Italian at Willen Lake
I don't know what it'll be
next week.
called.
I can't remember the name of it, which is really annoying. But I'm looking forward to that. I've heard some good things about that.
Yeah, good.
So,
But no,
yeah.
nice one, Ben.
All right, mate. You take care.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
very much.